'Tis a gift to be simple, 'tis the gift to be free, 'tis the gift to come down where you ought to be. And when you find yourself in the place just right, 'twill be in the valley of love and delight.
When true simplicity is gained, to bow and to bend we shan't be ashamed.
Good morning, and welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Berkeley. I'm Cynthia Asperdides, and I'm serving as worship associate this morning. No matter who you are, how you make your living, no matter whom you love, or how you regard the sacred, we hope that you will feel welcome among us today. Everyone is invited to stay for lunch and conversation after the service. Just make your way across the atrium into the social hall. The last Sunday of the month is an all-church potluck, and everyone is welcome. We don't have our typical summer children's program during the summer season. However, we do have childcare, and kids are always welcome to stay in the service. If there is something on your heart that you would like lifted up in our service today, there is a memory book in the back of the sanctuary where you can write a joy or sorrow that will be read aloud. You are always welcome to simply light a candle there for a silent memory or prayer. As we begin our service, it is our practice to acknowledge that this church occupies land in Huchuin, the unceded territory of the Chochenyo-speaking Ohlone people. May we have the humility and courage to do our part to acknowledge what has been broken and the wisdom to live into a new solidarity with Indigenous communities. Today, we are pleased to welcome to our pulpit the Reverend Dr. Jane Ramsey. Jane is a retired nurse and hospice chaplain with a current practice in spiritual direction. Throughout her long-time membership in this congregation, Reverend Jane has been involved in many programs. Today, she is co-facilitator with Anne Greenwood of the Aging with Grace group, and she participates in the Buddhist Sangha and the GRIP lunch program. Jane, we are so glad you are with us today. Now, I invite you to rise in body or spirit and turn toward the back of the sanctuary and wave to those who are joining us online. Then let's offer a greeting to one another before we sing our opening hymn, Gathered Here. Those words will be on screen.
Gathered here in the mystery of the hour, gathered here in one strong body, gathered here in the struggle and the power, Spirit, draw near. Gathered here in the mystery of the hour, gathered here in the mystery of the hour, gathered here in the mystery of the hour, gathered here in one strong body, gathered here in the mystery of the hour, gathered here in the mystery of the body, gathered here in the mystery of the body, Spirit, draw one strong body, gathered here in the struggle and the power, Spirit, draw near, Spirit, draw near.
I'd like to invite Carrie Simpson to come forward and kindle our flame. While I share these words, an excerpt from Circle of Grace by Jan Richardson. Where the light begins. Perhaps it does not begin. Perhaps it is always. Perhaps this day will be the mountain over which the dawn breaks. Perhaps this day the light begins in us. Thank you, Katya. I'd like to invite Karen Hart, longtime, almost lifetime UU, up here to share her life's journey.
Thank you, Cynthia. Well, good morning. Well, as you just heard, my name is Karen, and I would like to share with you this morning a little bit about what times we're in, especially when things are not so good, and as it relates to pride. In a few weeks from now, my partner, Naomi, and I will be celebrating 41 years together. 41 years. 17 of those legally married here in California. Now, prior to marriage, we had to do all those things that couples do when they do not have legal standing. We titled our joint property so that the other would definitely inherit it if something happened to us, one or the other of us. We got wills, we got a trust, we filled out all the appropriate paperwork at the hospital when one or the other of us had some sort of medical thing happening so that we could speak for each other if a decision needed to be made. We fought hard for and won domestic partner medical benefits from my employer in case one of us lost our employment. Then later, when Naomi was on my medical benefit, we put her on my medical benefits, we had to have the privilege of paying taxes for those, something that married people don't do. We had a long struggle to win our rights as a lesbian couple, and we look for allies in our struggles, which means that for us, we have to be allies for others too. One of the most loving things anyone ever did for Naomi and I was when her nephew, Dan, and his wife, Carla, protested at the state capitol after Proposition 8 passed, quashing gay marriage briefly. We felt the strength of true allies moving in action without us even asking. Allies are important. We aren't the only country around the world dealing with the shock of governments turning right towards authoritarianism. In Hungary recently, the government banned anything that promotes homosexuality, and that includes pride. So yesterday, in direct response, 500,000 people, 500,000, 500,000 people showed up for the Pride Day celebration in Budapest. I cannot tell you what percentage of the crowd was from the LGBTQ+, did I forget anything, Jane? Community. But I do know this. There was one heck of a lot of allies there standing with them in defiance of that government order. I refuse to be isolated. Whether that means sitting with a friend on my front porch for tea and conversation, or attending a monthly brunch with a group of longtime friends. Sometimes I take strength in a walk out in nature or along the Bay Trail, either alone, with a friend, or my neighbor's dog. I try to set aside time each week to call, text, write, and send a card to check in with friends and family. Also, I reconnect with art because it sustains me and soothes my soul. A friend that I taught with at Laney College invited me to see art exhibits. We plan a day of adventure, we can examine the artist's treasures, but mostly we spend time together as friends to share the great appreciation for someone's talents who exceed our own. And I remember to celebrate. You know, there's a couple of guys who lived near me who invited everyone in our condo complex that they could identify got married at the 15th anniversary of gay marriage being legal in California. And they held a big celebration, and I just can't tell you what that really meant for all of us to be able to do that, because many of us didn't have the wild party celebrations that most married people do. It was rather quick for Naomi and I. Now, there's also a lesbian group that gathers monthly where I live because we like each other's company, and it's good to be social. I take action. In addition to signing petitions and attending hearings, going to picket lines or protests, I take time to write to my elected representatives to make sure they know my opinion. Now, sometimes my protests are quiet and not so obvious. Less than a month ago, the Trump administration announced that they would start removing the names on Navy ships that were named for those that they disagreed with. First on their list was to rename the U.S. Navy ship Harvey Milk, second built in the John L. Lewis class of naval repair and maintenance ships. Now, there is no question in my mind that removing Harvey's name from the ship is part of this administration's efforts to remove us from history. So I decided to order myself a Harvey Milk Navy cap as my way of saying they cannot erase us, and we will never be made invisible. May you know peace and be strong in causing good trouble. Thank you.
Today, many of our congregants are marching, in the San Francisco Gay Pride Parade with other UU congregations. So in support of their participation on our behalf, I offer this poem for Pride by UU minister Lois Van Leer. They will march, walk, wheel, dance, shimmy and shake, block upon block of undulating color, flesh, banners, signs, clothing or lack thereof, hands raised, hands linked, apart, together, singing, shouting, chanting, silent, joyous, tearful, nervous, afraid, proud, defiant, angry, happy, delirious, tentative, ecstatic, courageous, brave, free. The stereotype, the unrecognizable, the flamboyant, the ordinary, the parent, the child, the runaway, the lost, the lonely, the found. Gay, lesbian, bisexual, trans, queer, intersex, questioning allies, and those who taunt and jeer, their banners of hate 10 feet tall. God made Adam and Eve, not Adam and Steve. Burn in hell. The other slogans, straight but not narrow. I love my gay child. Standing on the side of love. One day a year, one out of 365, Mardi Gras out of season, festive, bacchanalian, tame, booths, food, shopping. Underneath, there is a history, resistance. It was the marginalized of the marginalized. Drag queens, transvestites, the butch and the femme, who in their tired rage stood up, rose up, fought back, holding the police captive in the bars they had come to raid. Their weapons, their oppression, their hands, beer bottles, Stonewall, 6 days of riots in New York City, June 1969. A year later, a march in Philadelphia, New York, Chicago, Los Angeles, San Francisco, and now, any weekend in June, anywhere around the world, even Budapest, Pride. Why do we march? For those who are not able, for those who have been murdered, for those who are ravaged by disease, for those who are still beaten, still taunted, still harassed, still victims, still targets. Why do we march? Because some truths aren't self-evident, because all men aren't protected equally. And we love a good party. They will march, walk, wheel, dance, shimmy and shake, block upon block of undulating color, flesh, banners, signs, clothing, or lack thereof. Hands raised, hands linked, apart, together, singing, shouting, chanting, silent. Joyous, tearful, nervous, afraid, proud, defiant, angry, happy, delirious, tentative, ecstatic, courageous, brave, free. Happy Pride.
don't know if I need to introduce myself. I think I've already been introduced. So, I'm Jane Ramsey. And now, we will take a moment to breathe. And I have to tell you, when I entered seminary, I got a little tired of being told to breathe. Because, I'm alive. I'm breathing. It happens. But I did get the point, and I do get the point, especially as I learn more and more about meditation. So please, as I know you've been asked to do 1,000,000 times, let's do it again. Let's take a few deep breaths. Listen to your breath. Listen to that life that is flowing through you all the time. Be as calm as you can. When thoughts enter your head that disrupt that, let them go. And don't get anxious. Just breathe calmly and know that you are held in love, that everything will be all right. I always appreciate it when people write clearly. Someone wrote, wishing for peace in the world, in Gaza, Ukraine, and Iran. We all know this is a harsh, harsh time. It becomes harder and harder to believe in the goodness that really and truly does exist. As is often said, there are terrible things that we're aware of, and there are good things that we're aware of. Nurture those good things. Nurture those good thoughts. Nurture those feelings, those desires for peace in the world, for kindness in the world. I think that's one of our biggest jobs, is to nurture those feelings. And it also helps. It helps to know if you are feeling good and kind, that it's sending that out into the world. It's sending it out to all the people in all those places where war exists, and send it out to all the sorrows and problems and feelings and hurts that you and or anybody you know or not know may have. This is a community of support and love. Know that you are held by this community. And as I'll talk about more, there is a way to have faith. You may remain seated as we sing together number 396, I Know This Rose Will Open.
I know this rose will open. I know my
Many think of faith as a narrow-minded belief system of having a lack of intelligence, there being a lack of examination or pain at having one's questions silent. Faith might evoke images of submission to external authority. Historically, the idea of faith has been used to slice cleanly between those who belong to a select group and those who do not. To fuel their own embittered agendas, fanatics harness what they call faith into hatred. Where am I? Why does the world feel like mush? Why do I have nothing to stand on? And looking back, this is perhaps the beginning, at least, of my entering widowhood. One of the first things a counselor will ask is, when did you have such a lost feeling in the past, and how did you cope? The answer is, of course, I didn't. I survived, because I never had a solid belief that anything or anyone could help. At least that was true at the age of 12. As a child, my mother and I once attended a service, perhaps two, at the Washington Cathedral when we were stationed in Washington, D.C. I thought it was lovely. Holy, holy, holy. I fell in love with the 23rd Psalm. Although we never attended church neither before or since that time, until my mother joined the Unitarian Fellowship in Monterey, I assumed, as any white mainstream Protestant, that this is the way the world, at least my cultural world, which was dominant at the time, operated. It was quite lovely and assumed a belief in a benevolent God and Jesus and the Holy Spirit, all here to help me and everybody else in the world. Remember, I was around 9 or 10 and had never gone to church regularly. Soon after that experience, my parents were divorced and I lost that secure world, and so did my mother, who became a Unitarian. Faith did not exist for me. Faith in anything that could possibly be of any help, that is. There was no way I knew that rose was going to open. Time passed and I eventually married, had children, went to college, and started a career. Life began to look like that old WASP model. Then I got older, kids grew up, and my husband died, and COVID happened. During COVID, I joined the Sangha at UUCB online, of course, and was introduced to Buddhism. I continue to be a part and receive wisdom from the books we read and discussion of how we can or cannot apply what we learn to our everyday lives. Susan Selberg is a well-known Buddhist teacher and author on loving-kindness meditation. She has written many books, and in an interview, when asked which of her books was her favorite, she responded with, "Faith, trusting your own deepest self." Spoiler alert, that is the crux of this sermon. More about her and the book later. As many of you are aware, one of my past careers was as a hospice chaplain. Most of my patients identified as Protestant, although very few actually attended any particular church outside of weddings and funerals, and I'm pretty sure did not have a clue what the Trinity was about. Those who were attached to a specific church and for whom their faith was particularly important often received comfort as they approached death. I could no sooner believe that what my patient believed was real or truthful. I could no sooner believe that what my patient believed was not real or truthful than believe I could tell you what you believe or don't believe is not true. Jewish, Muslims, Hindus, as well as Buddhism, humanists, and others can and do teach loving kindness, even though it may be by another name. One's faith, no matter by which name it may be called, can be and often is beneficial and real. 99% of the publicity we hear about religions is negative, horrifyingly so, and not necessarily true of most practitioners of that faith. I just made that up. Susan Salzberg, along with co-founders Jack Kornfield and Joseph Goldstein, established the Center for Buddhist Studies in Michigan, Massachusetts. She has written many books and extensively around the world, and along with others, has been a major force in the development of Buddhism in the West. Her story. My father, whom I adored, disappeared when I was 4, and my mother and I moved in with my aunt and uncle. One night, when I was 9 years old, my mother and I were home alone. She had recently undergone surgery and seemed to be recovering well. In celebration of her return, I was wearing my ballerina Halloween costume. We were sitting close together on the couch, watching my mother's favorite singer, Nat King Cole, on television. Susan's mother then began to bleed and bleed and bleed. The ambulance came, and that was the last time Susan ever was to see her mother. Life did not improve much after that, and Susan learned that nothing good was ever going to happen because she did not deserve it. She describes an old Peanuts cartoon in which Lucy has a booth with the "Doctor is in" sign. And Lucy explains to Charlie Brown, "The trouble with you is that you're you." When she first went to college, Susan was not sure about where her interest would lay. She saw a course in Buddhist studies, philosophy, and thought that might be interesting. She learned about meditation, and from then on, she was drawn to Buddhism and mindful meditation. In the beginning, all was great, and she experienced the bright star phase, in which it seems as if all problems are solvable and life is good. A phase similar to the pink cloud phase in the 12-step programs. This, of course, did not last. Through the ups and downs, she eventually developed a belief in herself and a belief in the basic goodness of others. I believe that it helped her through a deep loss, what I call the wall of experiencing the death of a loved one. I have often found it problematic that people teach things I could not believe to be true. To have such a belief requires faith in what is being taught. I often envied the kind of faith that some people seem to have. It's not just the various beliefs of different religions, it was also the WASP culture that it is better to ignore or bury what is unpleasant. A good example of this is in the 1939 movie Dark Victory with Bette Davis. A young socialite experiences dizziness and headaches. She sees a doctor who examines her and concludes that she has a terminal brain tumor. So he does not tell her, because that, of course, would only make the situation worse. He does tell people closest to her. The situation does get worse. The doctor and the patient fall in love. She goes blind, another condition the doctor did not tell her would happen. She eventually figures it out and dies happy. All scenes take place with the doctor, as well as Bette Davis, smoking in and out of the doctor's office. Of course, this is an exaggeration, the plot that is, but it truly demonstrates a culture of denial, that not facing the truth is the best way to cope with any situation, especially unpleasant ones. I have come, through studying Buddhism, to respect the truth, no matter how ugly, unpleasant, or painful. Because of this respect for truth, I am able to have faith in who I am. When I have terrible thoughts about myself, I examine the thought and realize that it is just not true. This is a slight exaggeration. What I'm about to say is a slight exaggeration. When I have terrible thoughts about myself, I realize that it's not true. I am not a terrible, incompetent, senile old lady. Well, except for the old lady part. That's true. It's just not a bad thing. Without believing in something that makes no sense to me, I can and do still have faith. Faith in myself, my ability to face what is before me. And I can experience joy and have fun. Holding a vision of who we truly are, says Susan, we can emerge from whatever suffering we encounter, not broken and embittered, but ever replenishing wellspring of unwavering faith. We do not have to reject beliefs in dogma, but for many of us, we need to find faith elsewhere. By examining the truth, Susan was able to understand that she did, in fact, matter. The truth that allows us to see ourselves, mistakes included. Please don't ignore or bury your own errors. This faith that I have come to believe in is based on truth, not on something that was told to me to which I cannot subscribe. Examine your errors as you examine the pain that may have been caused by others. There are many versions of what is known as the metta, one of which I will say right now. May I be filled with loving kindness. May I be well. May I be peaceful and at ease. May I be happy. You repeat this as often as you need to. Then, may you be filled with loving kindness. May you be well. May you be peaceful and at ease. May you be happy. Repeat as often as you need to. This then can expand to your enemies or someone you just plain dislike for no good reason. You will be surprised as to how much better you will be feeling, not only about yourself, but for others as well. Remember, first, as with the oxygen mask, do this to yourself. Then it is much easier to care for others. Susan says, in my understanding whether faith is connected to a deity or not, its essence lies in trusting ourselves to discover truths on which we can rely. Hasn't there always been, possibly buried deep inside, a belief that you know more than what you present to the world and even to yourself? That part of you needs to be unburied. It probably won't surprise you that there is a group identifying as Unitarian Buddhists. It might surprise you to know that there is also a group of Christian Unitarians. While at GA last week, I attended a worship service led by this group. I was surprised at my response. God and Jesus language was spoken. Old hymns had their original words, and I was about ready to take the pledge, which, by the way, was not asked of me or anyone. Buried pain arose in me that I was ready to turn over. Buried pain arose in me that I was ready to turn over to a loving God, and I was near tears. I was surprised at my response until I realized how safe I felt in a Unitarian Universalist setting. I feel that the word love tends to be overused. It has lost its specialness. Yet love is the feeling I experience both in the Christian service and within Buddhism. Love for self, love for others, and for the world. I learned to trust my own deepest self. There is something between or other than atheism and dogma, faith versus reason. Believe in yourself. Believe in loving kindness. There is hope. There is faith, and it is in you. Okay. Now I've got to find the list of what's next. There it is. Oh, music.
Good morning. I'm Celine Fabiano, and I'm the secretary of your Board of Trustees. In our covenantal community, we share the responsibility for pursuing our mission by giving generously of our time, talent, and treasure. I invite you to support the work of our church through a financial contribution. There are a couple of ways you can do this. You can give electronically by scanning the QR code located on your badge, or you can put a cash or check donation into a donation envelope, which you'll find in the pew pocket in front of you. When you leave the service, you can put the envelope into the donation box beside the fountain in the atrium. Each week, half of our offering is shared with a nonprofit Good Neighbor organization. The Good Neighbor for this month is Groundwork Richmond. The mission of Groundwork Richmond is to bring about the sustained regeneration, improvement, and management of the physical environment by developing community-based partnerships which empower people, businesses, and organizations to promote environmental, economic, and social well-being. Will you join me in rededicating ourselves to our mission? We dedicate our offering and ourselves to the mission of this congregation, to create loving community, inspire spiritual growth, and encourage lives of integrity, joy, and service.
Thank you for joining us today. We have only one important announcement today, which I would like to draw your attention to. But before doing so, I want to encourage everyone to check out our website, uucb.org, to explore all the things that are going on in this congregation. On the home page, you'll see news, and there'll be a link to our weekly email newsletter, The Week Ahead, which includes a list of activities, announcements, and contact information. But the one upcoming event I want to draw your attention to is this. As part of our summer forum, Sunday mornings at 9:30 a.m., the World Peace Committee is presenting a 4-part series on nuclear weapons and the path toward disarmament. Part 2 is next Sunday morning. So now, please rise in body or spirit and join in singing our closing song, Sing and Rejoice.
Sing and rejoice, let all things living know. Sing and rejoice, sing and rejoice, sing and rejoice, sing and rejoice, sing and rejoice. Let all things living know. Sing and rejoice, let all things living know. Sing and rejoice, let all things living know. Sing and rejoice, sing and rejoice, sing and rejoice. Let all things living know. Sing and rejoice.
For you shall go out in joy and be led back in peace. The mountains and the hills before you shall burst into song, and all the trees of the field shall clap their hands. Go in peace.